When you look in a mirror, do you like the image you see? Today on the third story, we're going to hear from a talking mirror. We'll see how a blind couple looks after a household.
We'll watch our professor look for his image in a jar of buttons. And we'll hear how a fort was captured when the invaders flew the wrong flag. But first, let's see what Laura's doing about her image.
Look at all those calories. Let me see that.
Get your hands off my food. I'm eating.
I just want to count your calories, Sig. How many French fries? 30? That's about 300 calories. And a milkshake. Why did you buy a large milkshake? That's about 500 calories, Sigrid. And a chocolate bar, at least another 150. Let me see. How much is that? That's over 1,000 calories, Sigrid. That's more than I've eaten in 3 days.
Sis, are you okay? You don't look like yourself.
I hope not. This is the new me. A whole 4 3/4 pounds lighter. Can you tell?
That's crazy, Laura.
I feel wonderful.
You look terrible.
You're just jealous. And it's all for Darren. If he only knew how much I loved him.
Didn't he ask you out for the party tonight?
Yeah, why do you think I'm starving myself?
Well, if he asked you out, why starve yourself? He must have liked you the way you were.
Because it's a pool party, stupid. And Linda's gonna be there. And you know what she looks like in a bathing suit. Why are some girls born with movie star figures? And why do the rest of us have to die to get one?
Sis, you look pale. Are you sure you don't feel sick?
I'm all right. It's just your French fries. They're saying, eat me, eat me, eat me.
Now I know you're sick.
I feel wonderful. I'm gonna knock their socks off, especially that skinny Linda.
I don't see why you're worried about Linda. No one likes her anyways. The boys think she's a snob.
I've seen the way Darren looks at her. I want him to look at me like that.
You look green. Here, I think you needed junk food.
Get that stuff away from me. I don't feel like eating. I feel like throwing up.
But you haven't eaten for days.
I know, and I feel dizzy too. Oh, I think I'm sick.
Here, sit down. What have you been eating?
Tomato juice.
What kind of diet is that?
It's supposed to rid your body of toxins.
I hate tomato juice.
So do I.
Then how could you do it?
Because I love him. But I feel sick. Oh.
Here, put your head between your legs. It's the only first aid I know.
I think I'm gonna lie down. I don't want to go out with Darren tonight. Oh, I don't want to go to a party. Oh.
We'll be back with more image stories in a moment.
In our minds, we carry ideas of what would make us truly happy. Often we transfer these ideas to symbols or images. For example, we try to be like certain people who represent happiness to us.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to have a mirror talk to you using all the wisdom it's gathered from years of observing people?
Hi. As a mirror, I have privileged information. People do things in front of me they'd never think of doing in the presence of anyone else. You could say that I get to see their real images. Sometimes it makes me sad to see people trying so hard to change themselves into something they're not, but would desperately like to be. Little girl, you're going to have to learn to live with those pimples. I know you hate having them with the guys around and all, but you can't wish them away. Accept them and look after them the best you can. Oh, it feels nice to have a cute guy like you looking at me so intensely. I see a lot of hope in your eyes. Would you take a bit of advice from me? It's nice to look sharp on the outside, but make sure the character on the inside of you is every bit as good. Mom, don't worry so much about aging. Gray can give you that trusted, mature look. And besides, you don't even have to have hair to be appreciated. It's okay to cry. I know it smudges your makeup and people might notice, but I've seen lots of men and women cry. It makes them feel better. And your jealousy can hurt you more than that other person. Why don't you just be yourself? Go with what you've got and build on it. In my lifetime, I've reflected on a lot of people. I've seen them fuss with themselves, always hoping and wishing, often for something they'll never be. And I've come to this conclusion. Change what you need to, accept what you can't change, and work hardest on building your character.
Often we're not satisfied with ourselves and we try to create a new image. It's best to be honest with who we are and try not to be someone else.
You might say that happiness is finding the right button. Don't go away. We'll be back with two people who see with their hands.
People who are blind have to make up images in their mind without using their eyes. They do this in interesting ways. John and Delia Knight are married and have a son. Their life is quite different from that of many people, and they manage very well.
I became blind in January of 1973. I had gone through some experiences and got to the point where I was in a period of depression, and I felt that nobody cared about me or cared what happened to me. So I attempted suicide, and through that attempt became blind. The optic nerves were damaged, and as far as I know, there is no way to reverse the damage.
I was born with cataracts, which is a little growth in the eye that would limit the vision. I have about 6.5% vision, which means that if you see something at 200 feet away and I see the same thing at 20 feet away, they would look about the same. I don't really recognize faces. I recognize people more by voices. I usually tell people that John leads me around. I don't lead him around because he's much better with directions and with remembering details.
While I'm going to school, Delia helps me out with reading handouts and things like that.
Taking care of Matthew, changing him and dressing him and bathing him, we do together. I feed him more than John does because Matthew gets mad if John has to keep his hand somewhere to know where his mouth is because he's moving around a lot. Because we live in a town where there's no bus service, I get a ride with a friend, and I'm starting to know the store so that I have a rough idea where things are. I have a little magnifying glass that I can whip out to check prices.
I think in many cases we try to be as independent as we can.
We can't usually pay people in money because we don't have a whole lot of extra money, but we try to repay them by inviting them for coffee, so we go through a lot of coffee.
I think a lot of the general public have misconceptions about the blind. If they realize you're blind, they also think that possibly your hearing is also deficient because they tend to speak to you with a raised voice. Many times they saw that I was blind. I was walking around with a cane, so then they'd run and help me across the street without asking if I wanted to get across the street in the first place. Usually most people are considerate, and when they approach you, they'll ask if you need help.
The thing that I find sometimes too is that people, whatever I do, just a simple task, they think it's so amazing that I can do it. Well, especially when we had Matthew, a lot of the people would wonder how we were going to take care of a baby. And when they'd hear that we, bathed our baby ourselves and changed his diapers, and they thought it was so amazing. And that's kind of frustrating, but really, there are a lot of very, very nice people out there who can act very natural when they meet you and don't treat you any different than anybody else. We don't want to be remembered by the blind couple. We want to be remembered by John and Delia, who have certain qualities.
Some advantages may be that with losing one sense, other senses become more sensitive. You learn to depend on them more. Hearing becomes more acute. Well, I read Braille, so my sense of touch has to be better than most people's as well.
Sometimes I think I'm more rich for it because people who can hop in their car, do everything themselves, miss out on a lot of blessings as far as relating to people go, because I think it's a real blessing to learn to receive and also to give.
I guess I can form an image from feeling Delia's face or Matthew's face. I can sort of form a mental picture of what they look like, but how true to the actual physical makeup that would be, only time will tell. I know that his nose turns up slightly, and he has cute little chubby cheeks. When we get to heaven and all disabilities will be gone there, then I'll be able to see Delia and Matthew and everyone else.
I can't see birds or the little things in nature, but I like to listen. Maybe one of the reasons why we enjoy music so much is because that's something that a person who can't see certainly can enjoy just as much as anybody else.
As I said before, I attempted suicide, and if the Lord hadn't intervened, I would have been dead. After I left the hospital, I was searching. I knew pretty much that the Lord had saved my life and that I should turn to Him, and it was about 2 years later that I rededicated myself to the Lord. We stayed 1 week with an Anglican minister. Through him, I made that commitment real. The Lord, even though I may not think He's with me, He's always there, and He's helped me through many struggles since I became blind, many frustrations. Sometimes I get frustrated because I can't do things like I used to be able to do them before I lost my sight. But He gives me the strength to cope with those problems. Sometimes I don't cope very well, and He has to remind me that His strength is sufficient for all of my needs.
We've been talking about the images people have of themselves. Other images or symbols are important too. We place a lot of trust in some of them.
People cannot get along without using symbols and images. Some of these symbols seem small and unimportant, like the designs on t-shirts. Others, like flags on battleships, are important enough to start wars. A flag is a piece of cloth that is loaded with meaning. It is a sign of respect and love of the nation it represents. A country expects its flag to be treated with respect. Flags are important during battles. They identify territory, vehicles, and ships. People trust them to mean what they say. In 1882, during the time of the fur trade in northwestern Canada, the English and the French were quarreling over the rich fur trade business. The English had set up a trading post called Fort Prince of Wales, which they were controlling. It was positioned on the west coast of the Hudson Bay. They did a profitable business trading for furs with the native people. The French were jealous. They wanted to break English control of trade in the Northwest, so they devised a scheme. They took a number of armed ships and brought them in across the bay. As they approached the fort, they lowered their own French flags. In their place, they raised the English colors on their masts. The English people in the fort saw the ships coming. They saw that the flags being flown were their own. The French ships sailed in close to the fort. Before their true identity was discovered, they were able to unload their men and guns without firing a shot. They captured the fort and burned the buildings. The last thing they did as a sign of their victory was to raise their own French flag. The ruins are still there today, showing how sincerely people trust the meanings they attach to the symbols they see. A different symbol, but one that carried a lot of power as well, was the one used by Mahatma Gandhi in India. It was the spinning wheel. To oppose British rule, Gandhi concentrated on the textile industry. His fellow countrymen were being paid small wages, and their products were being used by the British to make big profits for themselves. Gandhi preached independence, and to demonstrate his point, he carried a spinning wheel with him wherever he went. He spun and spun. He got the people of the country to spin with him as well. Soon the spinning wheel became a symbol loaded with meaning, a symbol that angered the British. It played a major part in helping India achieve independence. Gandhi also knew the importance of flags. He had a picture of his spinning wheel placed on a flag and flown as a part of the message he promoted. Symbols are important and powerful. They can tell others what we believe. When we wear them, they can become especially personal to us. Jewelry, earrings, necklaces, hairdo, t-shirts. They say things to others about us. We may not always realize how seriously people take these messages. We may be saying more about ourselves than we realize.
We're going to hear about a most important symbol after this break.
One of the most common symbols is the cross. It appears in such varied places as buildings and in jewelry. It is more than a mere decoration. It represents something deep and powerful.
Throughout its history, the Church has used symbols. One symbol, for example, is the dove. It stands for innocence and purity and represents the Holy Spirit. Another symbol is the olive branch. Since olive trees provide shelter and a place of rest, and olive oil is used for ointments, the olive branch has come to be a symbol for peace, harmony, and healing. One interesting symbol used a lot by the early Christians shortly after the time of Christ is the sign of the fish. Actually, it was a secret sign. The early Christians were often hunted down and killed by people who hated God and thought that Christians were a threat. It is said that when Christians met, they might casually draw a simple fish in the dust with their toe. If the other person did the same, they knew that they were both Christians and could trust each other. The most familiar Christian symbol is the cross. It appears on church steeples, letterheads, and is often worn in the form of jewelry. Many people who wear this symbol may not know its real meaning. It's a symbol of death, an awful death by crucifixion on a cross. At the time Jesus lived, criminals were killed by the Romans by tying or nailing their hands and feet to a wooden cross and letting them hang there until they died. They did this to Jesus, but he wasn't a criminal. He was God's perfect Son. The reason God let this happen to him was because he had sent Jesus to die for the sins of all the people of the world. He took the punishment for the wrongs we have done. A true Christian is someone who realizes and accepts all of this. To him, the cross becomes a very meaningful symbol. It represents a deeply sacrificial act of love that brings new life to the person who accepts it from God.
The symbols we wear say something about us. The images we have of ourselves are important too, but most important is how God sees us. He knows all about us because he made us. We don't need to put on any images for him, and he loves us very much.
We'd like to send you this Third Story Survival Kit. It has things to do and read. The story of Jesus' life, a free Bible study coupon, some stories and other things we hope you'll find interesting.
It's free. You can have it by writing to The Third Story, Box 2, Station F, Winnipeg, Manitoba. The Third Story, Box 2, Station F, Winnipeg, Manitoba. Thanks for watching.